South Korea's main work visa is officially considered one of the hardest visas in the entire country to get approved. The screening process is strict, the documentation is heavy, and even qualified applicants get rejected for missing small details. But in 2026, Korea also quietly launched a completely separate fast track for elite professionals that can get you permanent residency in just 3 years instead of 6. My name is Vincent, and in this video, I'm breaking down exactly how South Korea's work visa system works in 2026, the standard E-7 route, the new elite track, real salary numbers, and the mistakes that get applications denied. Let's get into it. The centerpiece of Korea's work visa system is the E-7, officially called the Foreign National of Special Ability Visa, though most people just know it by its category letter and number. It's granted to foreigners who sign a contract with a Korean company to perform work in one of the occupations specifically designated by the Ministry of Justice, currently around 86 job fields spanning IT, engineering, finance, design, and other specialized professions. Unlike some countries where you can apply somewhat independently, the E-7 is entirely employer-sponsored. You cannot self-apply. A Korean company has to offer you the job first and then initiate the process on your behalf. There are 4 subcategories, and which one applies to you depends on the actual job, not personal preference. E-7-1 covers professionals and managers across 67 designated occupations. This is the one most foreign white-collar hires fall into. E-7-2 covers semi-professional office and service workers across 10 occupations. E-7-3 covers general skilled laborers in craft-related work, also 10 occupations. And E-7-4 is genuinely different from the other 3. It's a points-based upgrade path specifically for people already in Korea on E9, E10, or H2 status who've worked legally for at least 4 years within the last decade and want to move into more skilled status. Here's the number everyone actually needs, and it changed for 2026. The Ministry of Justice announced updated salary standards in late December 2025, effective from February 1st through December 31st, 2026, reflecting rising minimum wages and cost of living. For E-7-1, the professional category most applicants fall under, the minimum is now 31.12 million Korean won annually. That works out to roughly 2.6 million won a month. E-7-2, the semi-professional category, sits lower at around 25.9 million won annually. A few details worth knowing about how this salary gets evaluated. It must be clearly and explicitly stated in your employment contract, and only your base salary plus fixed allowances count. Reimbursements like meal or transit allowances don't get factored in, even if your employer includes them in your total compensation package. Falling short of the threshold, even slightly, results in outright rejection or a denied renewal down the line, so this isn't a number to treat loosely. One nuance, large corporations may still qualify under an alternative GNI-based threshold, calculated as 80% of the previous year's per capita gross national income, which currently works out to around 39 million won, generally higher than the standard E-7-1 figure, so this mostly matters for major companies with their own internal compensation structures. Beyond salary, you need to meet specific educational or experience thresholds tied to your subcategory. For the standard E-7-1 route, you generally need either a bachelor's degree plus at least 1 year of relevant work experience in the field you're applying under, or a master's degree or higher directly related to the position. No work experience required if you have the advanced degree. Beyond your personal qualifications, the sponsoring company itself has to meet requirements too. It needs legitimate, ongoing business operations in Korea, and it has to demonstrate that hiring a foreign professional is genuinely necessary rather than simply a preference. There are also foreign employment ratio limits in most companies, generally capping foreign hires at around 20% of the domestic workforce. This is genuinely the most significant development in Korea's work visa landscape heading into 2026, and it's worth understanding even if you don't currently qualify, because Korea is clearly signaling where its immigration policy is heading. Introduced by the Ministry of Justice on April 2, 2025, the top-tier visa targets specific strategic industries: semiconductors, biotech, secondary batteries, displays, robotics, and defense. And it's structured as 3 linked statuses covering your entire journey: D10-T while you're job hunting, E-7-T once you're employed, and F2-T for long-term residents. The eligibility bar is genuinely high. You need annual income of at least 3 times Korea's per capita GNI, a master's degree from a top 100 global university, and work experience at a global 500 company. But the payoff is substantial. Top-tier holders can apply for permanent residency after just 3 years, compared to the standard 6-year path most E-7 holders face. And this program is actively expanding, not shrinking. On March 3, 2026, the Ministry of Justice announced its broader 2030 Immigration Policy Future Strategy, which extends top-tier eligibility to STEM professors and researchers, and introduces an entirely new E-7-M visa, specifically for foreign graduates of Korean technical colleges moving into manufacturing roles. If you work in one of these strategic sectors and meet the bar, this is genuinely worth discussing with your employer's HR before defaulting to a standard E-7 application, since the 2 tracks lead to meaningfully different timelines. The process starts with the one prerequisite that can't be skipped: securing an actual job offer from a Korean company willing to sponsor you. Once you have that signed employment contract specifying your salary, duties, and contract term, your employer takes over the next stage. They file your application through the Hi Korea portal or through the local immigration office, sometimes working with an immigration lawyer for more complex cases. Your employer needs to submit their own documentation alongside yours: their business registration certificate, documents justifying the necessity of hiring a foreign professional specifically, and in some cases, a formal recommendation letter from a relevant government agency or industry organization. On your side, you'll need your diplomas and transcripts with apostille or consular legalization, professional licenses relevant to your position, a criminal background check from your home country and any country you've lived in for more than 6 months recently, and in some cases, a health certificate, particularly common for roles in healthcare, education, or food-related industries. Every foreign document needs Korean or English translation, plus notarization or apostille confirmation for the key ones. And this translation and notarization process itself typically runs anywhere from $20 to $100 per document, a cost worth budgeting for separately from the visa fee itself. Once your employer submits the complete application to the immigration office, processing generally takes 2 to 6 weeks, with E-7-1 professional applications typically moving faster than the other subcategories. If you're already in Korea on a D2 student visa and land an E-7 job offer, you may be eligible for direct conversion without leaving the country. If you graduate without a confirmed offer yet, you can switch to D10 job seeker status within 6 months of graduation instead. And Korean university graduates who score TOPIK Level 4 on the Korean proficiency test are actually exempt from the D10 points test and the financial proof requirement, which is a genuinely useful shortcut if you studied in Korea and speak the language well. Your initial E-7 visa is typically granted for 1 to 3 years depending on your contract, with renewals possible in 2-year increments as long as you continue meeting the salary threshold for that year. And it's worth emphasizing that word, that year, because thresholds move annually, so a salary that qualified you last year isn't automatically guaranteed to clear next year's bar. E-7 holders can bring immediate family along. Your spouse and unmarried children under 18 qualify for an F3 dependent visa, though it's worth knowing up front that F3 holders cannot work in Korea without securing separate authorization. This isn't automatic like some other countries' spousal work rights. Parents can potentially join under F1 visiting status too, but this requires your annual income to exceed twice the previous year's per capita GNI, a bar that eases somewhat if you hold a bachelor's degree or higher from a Korean university specifically. If you're bringing children for schooling, factor international school fees early into your planning, since these generally aren't covered by your visa status or your employer. If you want to change employers while on an E-7 visa, this isn't something you can quietly do. You need prior reporting and approval from the immigration office, and your new employer has to independently meet all the same E-7 sponsorship requirements your original employer did. And here's a genuinely important detail. If your sponsorship situation falls apart entirely, your employer withdraws sponsorship, or the relationship ends badly, renewal becomes considerably harder since the entire system is built around that ongoing employer relationship rather than existing independently of it. So here's the practical summary. Korea's E-7 visa system genuinely lives up to its reputation as demanding, heavy documentation, strict salary thresholds that move every year, and a screening process that punishes incomplete applications. But it remains the primary legitimate gateway for skilled foreign professionals into one of Asia's strongest economies. And if you work in a strategic industry like semiconductors or biotech, the new top-tier track can meaningfully compress your timeline to permanent residency. Get your documentation right the first time, confirm your specific subcategory before applying, and work closely with your sponsoring employer throughout. If this was useful, subscribe for more work visa breakdowns like this one, and let me know in the comments which country you want me to cover next.